I'm going to switch to the research funded talks, and Yalda Yules is going to start us off. So these are brief updates of 3 minutes each from each of the research teams that have been working together. So Yalda.
Okay, thank you. 3 minutes, oh boy. So I am really, really thrilled to be here and to share the work that I did with Ellen Wartella, who I don't think is here, and that I'm currently, Maya Hernandez, who works with you, is working on the second iteration of the funding that we've gotten. So I'm with the Center of Scholars and Storytellers. I founded it. Hopefully some of you know about us. Our mission is to bridge exactly what Ron introduced, to bridge research and content creation. And we focus on adolescence, and we bring people together to ideate, talk about different ideas, and then hopefully execute on ideas that can leverage storytelling. We were funded for think tanks, 2 think tanks, which we held in 2019. And we brought together, Candace was at both of them. And I think some other people probably in this group have come to some of them. They were incredibly productive. We chose different topic areas. And what happens is we bring people together, we discuss what we can do together in a community to use the power of entertainment media. We chose special topics, and then we manage the process of developing the products, basically, or research, and then we bring them back and we workshop the ideas. So we had incredible success. So I'm just going to give you a real brief, like 3 things that came out of these think tanks that have already been launched and have been really, really well received by the industry. So first is this tip sheet around gender roles for boys. You can see it's been downloaded over 400 times by both parents, educators, and content creators. We feel like it's been a big success. We've heard a lot of great stories about this. We also did a foster care initiative that came out of the think tank that got 200,000 views. We partnered with YouTube Kids, and it was an incredible success. I'm just going to go very quickly. I have no idea. I can't see the chat. So, and then last, we just released a report on diversity and inclusion that came out of this. This was actually original research, not peer reviewed, but we did it as a report. It was widely picked up in the press. We did a tip sheet with it. You can see people were sharing it on social. We reached 100,000 followers, and we had great industry support, and it's leading to amazing conversations with guilds, the Academy, and Participant Pictures, and a whole bunch of other people. So I think that was 3 minutes. I hope not. I hope so. Just to tell you what we got funded for the second round, we're doing a COVID tip sheet, and Maya is actually leading that with a UCLA graduate student. And we're excited to give guidelines to the industry about representing COVID in a way that supports young people. Thank you.
So my name is Kaya Yashinska. I'll give you a very brief 3-minute update about our research program. So with my collaborators, Amy Ogan and Yelena Obradovich, who I don't think are both here, actually, we've been developing, with Amy in particular, a literacy intervention that runs on simple, very basic phones to provide access to quality literacy instruction in Cote d'Ivoire for kids who are growing up in rural, very low resource communities. Now, within the context of this larger study is where our program here actually fits in. So we know that some kids given access to a literacy intervention will respond to that intervention while others will not. So anticipating that we will get very different response to intervention effects, we wanted to understand what some of the predictors of success might be. So within that, we actually measured children's, we set out to measure children's executive functions because we thought this would be a really important component of actually succeeding within this intervention. We used a tablet-based assessment that Yelena has been actually adapting for kind of, let's see, like low resource settings, places where we might not have a lot of data already, or we don't have standardized assessments. So something that would be more or less as close to universal as possible. So we set out with these tablet-based assessments to collect this executive function data within the context of this larger program. And of course, then we got derailed with COVID to some extent, as our intervention was completely interrupted. Schools were closed, et cetera. We all know we're all suffering with the same kind of consequences to our research. So what we actually have done now, how we've pivoted, we've got this baseline data and this ongoing RCT, but now we actually can't go out into the field to collect in-person data with these children. And so we're actually taking the opportunity now to leverage what we've already learned with tablet-based assessments, what we've already learned with phone-based interventions and delivery of literacy interventions over the phone, to deploy a literacy assessment with a simple phone. So this is how we've pivoted for phase 2 of the funding, is to now actually test kids' literacy skills using a very simple phone with text messaging. So my team is deep in piloting and protocoling this right now. We're hoping to launch this at the end of November and see how that works. And I think this has a lot of impact because a lot of teams are struggling with the same challenges. And many of us have been able to pivot to remote testing protocols, but those usually require Zoom and things that kids in rural regions of Cote d'Ivoire do not have. And so, that would be we're really excited about the potential impact we could have by actually being able to see whether a phone-based, low-tech solution might help with continuing educational research in these challenging settings.
My name is Saba Kawas, and I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Washington. I'm co-advised by Julie Kins and Katie Davis, and I'm here to present on behalf of our research collaborators our work on the Designer's Toolkit that aims to translate research findings from the design of interactive technologies for children. There are numerous research findings on child development and interactive technologies that could help inform the design of better interactive technologies that meet the needs of the current generation of children and future generation as well. Yet designers often do not have access or the time to keep up with the research findings or even the expertise to make sense of them. While popular media may cover some of these studies, it does not focus on translating the research findings in a way that is useful to both designers and creators of kids' technologies. In this project, we've conducted a systematic lit review on published research papers in the Interaction Design and Children Conference, IDC. This conference is the ACM primary annual international conference series for researchers and educators to publish and share the latest peer-reviewed research findings, new technology innovations, as well as methodologies of inclusive child-centered design and interactions. This conference community and researchers that have been publishing for the last 2 decades have been committed to the participatory design experiences and discussions on how to create better interactive experiences with and for children. With the funding that we've received from SRCD, we've developed a process and a prototype for presenting findings from the IDC research in a way that is accessible and actionable to designers via the online toolkit. Again, we focused on translating this notable findings and the design recommendations and guidelines, as well as any reported results from the evaluation studies with children. We then organized this research based on the problem space and mapped all the paper's findings to fit industry design process, from understanding, brainstorming, to building and evaluating children's technologies. Currently, we're actually planning an evaluation workshop. We actually have a couple scheduled for next Friday, November 6th. So if you know any industry practitioners who'd be interested, please let us know. And our aim from that is to gain an insight on how our current toolkit addresses not only the barriers from accessing research, but also practical ways that we can meet their needs in using evidence-based research in their current work. Again, just to recap, our primary goal is to address the barriers of access to the evidence-based research with this interaction design and children toolkit. and hope that it'll serve as a bridge for IDC researchers to share their findings and methods with practitioners that work with or on children's technologies in a digestible and accessible format. Thank you.
Hi all. I think that our group is next. We are a group and we were talking about, our research was looking at online social support and how young people use these online platforms to seek help for their mental health problems. So in the next slide, we have our main research questions, which were fit into 3 different themes. And we used qualitative and quantitative methods to look at all 3 of these questions. So first, we were interested in how adolescents ask for and seek help online. So what were the things that they were discussing in their posts in terms of their mental health concerns? Second, how were the comments helping them? Were they helpful or were they less helpful? And then do adolescents and young people feel helped by those interactions online?
Thanks, Madeline. So for answering these research questions, we selected TalkLife as our study platform. TalkLife is an online peer-to-peer support platform for mental health. In this platform, users can post and comment on people's posts, and there are other features to engage with other users. So we received this big data set from TalkLife that included more than 5 million posts and 5 million comments. In order to make the analysis feasible on this data set, we came up with some criteria to narrow down the data set. Next slide, please. So first, we decided to only select posts that are categorized as self-harm by users. And also we filtered the posts by ages 13 to 24-year-old. And we excluded the posts and comments that are deleted or by a deleted account for ethical reasons. So I hand it off to Monica.
Thank you so much, Afsana. Our quantitative approach to these data were to use topic modeling on the approximately 500,000 posts from about 80,000 users. Afsana did the heavy lifting to create 3 sets of topic models of 8, 10, and 18 topics each. Nick, Alan, and I did kind of a clinical assessment for interpretability, landed on the 8-topic model as the most interpretable of the 3. And from there, we handed it back to Afsana, and she sorted the posts, so those 500,000 posts roughly, into kind of their primary topic each. And what was interesting about that was that we had filtered these posts as the ones that were tagged by the users as self-harm. And what we found was over half of these posts landed as their primary topic in the buckets that were most characterized by suicidal or morbid language. These 2 topics right here. And that's not shocking because TalkLife doesn't offer a suicide tag, right? So users can't categorize as suicide. As clinicians, we were thinking self-harm, non-suicidal self-injury. And it turns out these users are using it predominantly in a different way. The other topics are also super interesting, but we only have 3 minutes. So I'm going to hand it off to Hanneke.
Yes, thanks very much. And we don't have a lot of time left, so I'm going to walk you through this part very quickly. We also use a qualitative approach where we really mapped our research questions to the content and the data that we had. So we have the original post, the way people comment on that, and how the original post responds to that. So if you go to the next slide, you see a glimpse of the coding and qualitative framework that we built, that we really built to not only be useful for TalkLife data, but also very much for other types, similar types of data, such as maybe Instagram or something else. And then moving on to the next slide, and what we want to do in the future is for the quantitative work, we are hoping for an SRCD, a symposium that Monica sent in. And we're going to rate the comments for social support and use machine learning to test whether we can say anything about the way people give social support. For the qualitative work, we're gonna code all data that we have with the framework we have at the moment and try to improve that and also use it on other similar data sets, hopefully in the future. And in the end, we want to combine all these different perspectives and work together to really try to answer our research question, which is about people that want to help, how they are helped, and whether it was helpful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so my name is Ashley Knapp, and I'm working with Dr. Madhu Reddy, who you just saw at Northwestern University, and also working with Dr. Nick Allen at University of Oregon. So for the original award, we were first interested in building a collaboration between our group at Northwestern and Dr. Allen's group in Oregon. And so pre-pandemic, Dr. Allen was actually able to visit our campus to begin this collaboration. And fast forward to now, he is one of my mentors on my K Award. And then I actually recently collaborated with Monica Lind, who you saw actually in the last presentation. She put together and we submitted a SRCD symposium submission. So that collaboration is very fruitful and still going strong. And then for the project, we were broadly interested in better understanding what type of information we should provide adolescents who are using digital mental health tools. And what's pretty wonderful was this project started the collaboration and started the work with the library that I mentioned in my early career presentation that was at the beginning of this workshop. And so what we're doing is, and then I was able to build off of it with my K, but what we're doing, we've had to pivot away from design workshops, just given the pandemic. We completed a couple, but then pandemic happened. So we've been doing interviews, and we just completed the staff interviews just to really see how are they serving youth around mental health, what electronics are they using, or what digital tools are they using, what could be helpful for them to help them in serving youth. And then we're just starting the teen interviews. So understanding what does mental health look like to this set of teens, what does anxiety look like, and then thank you for the 1 minute left. What does anxiety look like to them? What digital tools have been helpful? What would be helpful? Just to help us inform what will be, how should we design these digital tools for these youth? What would be really helpful for both staff-facing platforms as well as teen-facing? And then, just at the last time, I'll say with the recent extension that we received, we're actually pivoting away from the library and utilizing remote methods to better understand the effects of COVID-19 on teen mental health and what resources have been most helpful. So we are doing first a remote survey where we're working with youth panelists from Qualtrics to ask them about their impact of COVID on mental health and what electronic resources they have been using. And then this survey will inform the remote focus group that will be doing the questions that we'll be asking them, and using the method of asynchronous remote communities. Oh, and I am at time.
Thank you very much. So nice to be here today, and our group members are all online, and this is very much a team project, as you'll see. And thanks to the SRCD and the Jacobs Foundation, who has funded us now on 2 rounds, and we'll see where this goes. So we have been funded to think about the next generation of how we might measure parental monitoring and support in the digital age. So obviously the problem that we came together on is that without an actual clear picture of what's happening between parents and teens in terms of monitoring and support, we don't have an appropriate tool. And so how are we going to do the science without the kind of tool we need? Thinking about measures that are outdated, that are based on traditional sociological and psychological measures of parental monitoring, sometimes a little bit of support in there. And what we know about in the field is that often then scholars, including probably some of ourselves, have been left to deal with sort of on the fly measures, sometimes adding a line of online to traditional items. or creating their own measures or creating their own items about sort of specific problems that have been perceived to emerge, for instance, keeping a password private or technology addiction. So given the state of affairs, our team came together first to map the field, because of course, before you sort of try to create any kind of new measure, we need a net test blueprint. We need to understand the issues at hand. So the group of us undertook a systematic review following PRISMA guidelines on research related to parental monitoring and support in relation to youth ages 10 to 17. And what's important here is we went through both the quantitative and the qualitative literature, and we went through not just sociology and psychology, sort of the traditional literature some of us were a part of, but we also went through all the conference literatures for getting that HCI and computer science work. So we started out screening over almost 3,000 papers. So from that, we ended up coding, three of us coded over 120 quantitative studies around items and scales that were used and prevalent themes, but also emergent themes that might be important. Two of us also coded any of the qualitative literature. So that would be focus groups, those would be interviews, either with children or with parents. So that was 67 different studies. And again, coded for the themes arriving there. We then spent time what we called a marriage, and we tried to marry these two quite distinct literatures to see where there was overlap and where, in particularly in the qualitative literature, we were seeing these themes that were not being represented in the quantitative literature. And based on those clear gaps, a smaller group of us was funded for phase 2 to really pursue moving from a test blueprint to creating some items and working towards a scale. So in particular, things like parent-teen boundary negotiations, which we saw a lot in the qualitative literature, that parents aren't just sort of making one try. There's this back and forth between kids to sort of to put a limit on some of the screen time, and also lots of things that teens themselves were doing in order to sort of limit and monitor their own use. That again, we saw a lot of that in the qualitative literature, and we weren't seeing it in the quantitative literature. So that's just two illustrative examples. So all told, we really came up with what I think of as a test blueprint for our next phase in terms of how we should measure parenting, monitoring, and support in the digital age across these different areas of expertise. So where we are now, we have an invited submission to Perspectives on Psych Science that came through in August. So we are now writing up our findings and sort of our arguments for where the field needs to go for Perspectives, with a timeline to submit that in 2020. Simultaneously, a group of us did receive funding to undertake item analysis, and those items have come from our review work. And that is now under ethics review at my university right now, and ready to launch as soon as we sort of get through that backlog. Additional funding would allow for anything from refinement of items and looking at in different populations to working with many more items, seeking additional funding for programmatic research, large scale validation of the parenting measure, and open up the door for more large scale investment for understanding how individuals might actually use the scale and their impact on digital parenting. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Elceli Sejian. I am an assistant professor from the engineering school at Chapman University in Orange, California. In this video, I want to present a brief summary of the project Finding Your Voice on the side of my colleagues, Yvonne Rogers, Nicola Julie, Noemi Pataki, Wafa Yosa, El Cruz, Monica Tentori, and Yvonne Menor. A little bit of our motivation is that many children have struggled to find their voices in social situations. They may be shy, suffering from social anxiety, not speak a native language, or have some special needs involving communication with children such as autism. Various interventions have For example, telling jokes. A joke is the shortest, clearly structured conversation one can have with one or more kids. So telling jokes can help children improve their confidence, socialization, literacy, and cultural learning. So we propose using a new interactive technology to help children practice jokes, voice assist, which has been become increasingly affordable and confluent in overall. The goals of the project are to enable children to improve their joke telling skills by learning the intonation, timing, and context of jokes through interacting with voices. And human robot interaction. We visit startups, research labs, and we brainstorm to propose mini projects. The mini projects try to uncover novel manners to design voice assistants for television. Overall, we explore how to use commercially available voice assistants such as Google Home and Alexa, but we also explore how different form factors of voice assistants can be designed and developed for television. And we conduct pilot studies with voice assistants. Preliminary findings show that there are cross-cultural differences in the form of the speech recognition and in the form of the content, as humor is very culturally influenced. We also found the importance of the cues and bodies and gestures, especially when the voice assistant needs to express during a job telling or motion to express that the agent is listening. This is all from our side. Feel free to reach out with questions or comments. Thank you.